channel. Today's video is going to be a Q&A video, and it's going to be all about sort of mental health, anxiety and depression. I put a couple sort of feelers out on social media and also my private Facebook page, and asked if anyone sort of had any questions relating to those topics, either specifically about my journey, my battle through it, or just about the topics in general. So I have wrote some of them down. There's quite a few, so hopefully I can get through as many as I can in this video, but if you want like a part 2 at any point, just, you know, leave me comments down below. And I really want the comment section to be like a nice safe place for people to comment and share their experiences and things they found have helped other people. So without further ado, let's just get started with the questions, because I think this will be a long video otherwise. So I have made notes just so I can make it slightly more concise and get to the point, otherwise it will be a long video. But the first question is, do you know what triggers it? So I'm going to talk about anxiety and depression. So for my anxiety, yes, I know what triggers it. It is primarily a health-based anxiety. It's surrounded being ill, and I will talk about that. And there was another question that comes up about when it started, but on the surface level it's about being ill and not being able to feel safe or feel like I'm able to get out of a situation, and it used to be surrounding a lot of the time flying as well. That was at its peak when it was really bad. Depression, I don't really know what triggers it. It can be anything. The last period of depression, which has been my most severe, has largely been centered around work, but there have been sort of other tip-offs, and on like a day-to-day basis it could be really anything that triggers it, from, you know, waking up to an email, or just like seeing something in the news, or it could be anything, something you see on social media, or you could just like wake up in a bad mood. It could really be anything. The next question is, what do you do to get out of a depressive stage? And like I said, these comments are all going to be sort of tailored to how I deal with things. Everyone's experience is completely different, so I'm not going to sit here and say that, you know, this is the same case for everyone. This is just how I've dealt with it and what works for me. For me, if I'm feeling bad that day, a lot of the time all I can do is just wait it out. I sort of have to acknowledge the fact that I'm having a crappy day and I'm not feeling my best, and sort of just let myself feel those emotions, because I usually will feel better the next day, and I just see it as a sign that my body is telling me that I need like that mental health day to just do nothing. Sometimes I can have a nap, and that will sort of like break me out of it. I can have like a 2-3 hour nap, and then I'll wake up feeling really motivated and be like whizzing around the house doing stuff. But a lot of the time it is just, unfortunately, waiting it out, trying to distract myself if I can. Yeah. The next question is it like a cloud you can't lift, or is it like being paralysed? And to that I would say it's a bit like both. It definitely feels like you've got this weight on your shoulders, this cloud that you're sort of stuck in a fog, all these sort of different analogies that you could use. It can be quite paralysing in the sense where I could be sat on the sofa for 3, 4, 5, however many hours of the day, and just be like zoned out. Literally, I won't have the concentration to really do anything. Even just like watching YouTube or TV, I can find that really difficult as well, to find something that I enjoy. I do have some like go-to TV programs and things that I'll watch, which like I've watched them so many times that it can just be sort of like background noise. But it's definitely, it can be quite paralysing, both anxiety and depression. I mean, my anxiety was paralysing at one stage, in the sense that it prevented me from doing things like going out to social events, and it was really troublesome flying. And I don't suffer with my anxiety as much on a day-to-day basis, but it definitely has its flare-ups. one thing I've wrote here, which is sort of like, this is how I've sort of described it to people. If you've watched Twilight, and I can't remember which specific film it is, I think it's going to be New Moon, the one where Edward leaves and Bella goes into sort of like her depressive state, and she's just sat in her bedroom, sat by the window, and it just does like a montage of the months going past, and she's just sat there the whole time, nothing really changes. That is sort of what I can compare it to. You can just literally be sat there for hours and not realise that the time is ticking away. You can feel like the world is moving around you, but you're just sort of stuck in one place. So it can be really hard in that sense. And that's sort of how I describe it to friends who have asked, like, what is it like? Because it sort of gives like a visual representation, I guess, if they've seen that film, that is. Has the pandemic affected your health? I'd say yes and no. Obviously, yes, it has had a big impact on my mental health in the sense that I can't get out to see people. You know, I've not been able to go face to face, like talking to a counsellor. I've not been able to see my family, and I find I also really benefit from just like going out and just like popping to the shops, even if I don't buy anything, just like browsing the shops and going to like public spaces and getting that like normal day-to-day interaction. Obviously everyone's a bit more anxious at the moment, especially like food shopping and things. You feel like you're darting around a bit more, so I just try and be prepared and, you know, get in and out as quick as I can, choosing quieter times if I can. So in that sense, yes, it has affected me, but I feel fortunate that going into the pandemic, I already had things and coping mechanisms that I could use to help me day to day. Obviously, some people have come into this pandemic and they're experiencing anxiety or low mood for the first time, and it can be really shocking and not know how to go about it because this is such unprecedented times. What I would say to that is, you know, your feelings are completely valid. This is an unusual time for everyone, and you know, we're not going to be in a pandemic forever. So if your anxiety or depression has been triggered by the pandemic, it's not going to be forever. So that's sort of some comfort I can give to you in that sense. And I feel really lucky that obviously I've had techniques to be able to use throughout the pandemic, whereas some people it's just like sprung upon them for the first time. And I can do a whole sort of video, a separate video on like how to like help people with mental health. I have done like a couple of blog posts and things, so every sort of resource I can find that I've done in the past or anything else I can find, I will either throw it up in a card or I will link it down below. Especially some of my older blog posts, because that's like more raw to when I was first starting out and dealing with anxiety in particular. So the next question is, when did you start suffering with your mental health and what brought it on? So I will sort of talk about anxiety and depression separately, but as we all know, they're very interlinked. My anxiety started around 2014. I have done videos and blog posts around that time, so again, we'll link them down below. But just a quick short answer, my anxiety was brought round two very bad bouts of like food poisoning and a traveller's bug, and being what I felt trapped on an aeroplane for 8 hours, and that sort of didn't help my anxiety at all. And that's sort of that was like my trigger moment, I would say. That was the source of where it started, and from there it sort of just spiraled into feeling trapped in social situations and things, and feeling like, what if I'm ill? Can I get out of this situation? Like, is there an escape route for me? That sort of thing. And like I said, a lot of it surrounded flying. That's just like the short answer of it. My depression, I did suffer with depression sort of as a teenager, but it's never been as bad until this episode, I would say, and that started out November 2019, and that has been the reason that I have unfortunately had to be off work for this long period of time. Again, I'm not going to go into too much depth about it. I have done a couple of other videos, but that sort of was brought on from being away on holiday and then coming back full on into work. I think I was burnt out, not only from my holiday but from work, and I sort of just had a meltdown at work. So yeah, I was in a very stressful environment at work and that didn't help. So that's sort of what has brought on my anxiety and depression. I definitely feel like my anxiety has ebbed and flowed over the past couple of months because of my depression. The next question I need to be really careful about, have my employers been understanding? So if you don't know, my current previous employers, I'm saying that because at the time of filming this, and I may cut this out, I have resigned from my work because I can't see myself going back and they are no longer paying me and I feel no longer supported by them. So yes, my employers were understanding in the sense that I worked at hospital, and so the NHS is very big on the importance of mental health, and they have the occupational health team which will get in contact with you and do regular meetings and try and help. I feel like once lockdown was in place and I was unable to go physically and see my occupational health, I sort of dropped off their radar, which is unfortunate. And I also feel on a surface level I wasn't being supported that much by my sort of line managers and my department, which is really unfortunate. It's not everyone. There is definitely were members on my team that were really supportive, but I don't want to go into it too much because it's not fair to them, but yeah, I'm just gonna say I didn't feel as supported as I would have liked, and that has been one of the reasons why I've decided to resign. Next question, what does a bad day look like for you? So I'm going to treat this more so depression because that is what I've been dealing with layly, but I will also touch on what a bad day used to look like when I had panic attacks and anxiety. So I will start with that. So back when my panic attacks were really quite bad, a bad day would be like from the moment I got up feeling anxious, just feeling on edge all day, not really feeling like I'm present. I could have a panic attack that day. I mean, the worst case scenario is I do have a panic attack that day, but a bad day necessarily didn't mean I did have one. It could just be that I'm so on edge that I'm just like mentally and physically drained all day. And like I said, a really bad day was having a panic attack. You know, I would throw up from it. I'd not really be able to eat much. I'd have a poor like digestive system. That was like the worst of the worst for my panic attack and anxiety days. Currently, a bad day with depression for me, it looks like being really hard to get up in the morning. And I'm not just like, it's not like your alarm goes off, oh, what a struggle, you know, but you get up. It's as in like you might not actually wake up till maybe like 11 because you've maybe had a bad night's sleep, or 12, and you could be just awake in bed for hours before you even get up out of bed. There is no motivation to go and eat breakfast, no motivation to get out and like go to the toilet. There is nothing motivating you to leave the bed, and that can be the real worst of days. Some days I am able to get up, have breakfast, have a shower, get dressed, that sort of thing, but then I can sit on the sofa and be there like that Bella scene in Twilight, and be sat there for 3-4 hours and not communicate with anyone and not eat anything, not get up off the couch. Really, you feel like you're in your own bubble. I find it really difficult to even watch like my favourite people on YouTube. I definitely find it difficult to read. anything that requires me to concentrate for the shortest period of time I find really, really difficult. And those days usually will only last for the day. The next day I usually feel better. I'm not saying, you know, I'm going to be tip-top 100%, but whereas I was maybe like at 20% the day before, I may be feeling like 40 or 50% the next day, that sort of thing. So I feel better, but I'm not like 100% jumping for joy, like that sort of thing. But those are my specific worst days where it is just super hard to get up out of bed or do anything. All housework goes out the window. Making meals is really difficult, and I definitely have skipped meals and things like that because I haven't had the energy, the motivation, couldn't care less really about eating, and yeah, that is the sad side of it. The next question is, what stops you carrying on as normal? What are the signs your mental health is so bad that you can't work? And I think the last question sort of answered that slightly, but it's that unable to keep a routine. You don't know day to day what you're going to be like. It's so unpredictable. You feel like you're not going to allow people to rely on you to the best of their abilities, which sucks for me because I have always been such a reliable worker, an employee. Like I've always been wanting to be there on time, do everything to the best of my abilities. I want to show my employer I can be the best that I can be, and that's a whole nother topic, and I've spoke to my counsellor a lot about putting pressures on myself and things like that, but like I said, for some people depression and anxiety are completely debilitating and crippling and paralysing, and you may not be able to leave the house or get up out of bed, and that is what's preventing you from holding down a stable job. And like I said, you feel like you can't concentrate, and that could put people at risk depending on what the job is. You've also, at the end of the day, you've got no motivation to get up and go and work. Whereas I've always been really like work driven, like always been one to be really motivated about work and like set goals for myself and want to achieve things in life. Like the days you have bad depression days, like none of that matters. You don't care about any of that. You think, what is the point? Like you lose all self-motivation and you lose your drive for work, and that is what I have felt over the last couple of months as well, that I've simply lost the drive to do things that I once loved, which is a shame. And is, how can I help someone who is suffering with a panic attack? Firstly, if they've come to you and said, you know, I'm feeling anxious, I'm having a panic attack, that's because they see you as a safe person that they feel will understand them, and that is the biggest compliment that you could want. That person feels safe and trusting with you, and in that moment all you need to do is be there and listen to them. If you recognize signs in a person that they're having a panic attack or feeling anxious, but they've not necessarily come to you, then I find it really important to say to that person, you know, I think this is what you're feeling. Even if you've not been through it yourself before, telling them, you know, I can see that you're struggling right now. Is there anything that I can do to help? Do you just need me to be with you? Do you just need me to hold your hand? And hopefully they will tell you what they need. Sometimes they might not, and they might say, you know, I just need to be on my own and have the time to myself. Don't be offended by that, because that is, you know, what they need in a moment, and sometimes having too many people around them can be overwhelming. But yeah, if you can just listen to that person, sit with them, don't be offended if they don't specifically tell you details. If you're asking them things and they don't reply back straight away, like, don't get annoyed, don't get like wound up by it, don't try and force the situation, because it can take a long time to be able to open up, and they might like they might text you back like 3 or 4 hours later when they're feeling better, or they might like just be talking to you in like dribs and drabs, but that's the way that they are needing to cope in the moment, and just to know that you've like reached out to them and said that you cared is really important. The next question is, do you mind friends and family asking questions? And the answer to that is no. In fact, I would openly encourage friends, family, strangers to ask me any questions that they have about it, because at the end of the day, it's showing that you're caring about that person and you're wanting to understand more about what they're going through. And it shows that you're being an empathetic person. I'd rather someone ask me a question about something, whether it be, you know, what triggers it, or how long have you suffered, or is there anything I can do to help. I'd rather they ask those questions rather than just assuming what I need, or assuming what triggers it, or assuming they know everything about that condition just because maybe someone else they know has dealt with it. Like I said, every single person is individual, and getting to know that person specifically is really crucial. So yes, anytime, if you want to ask me a question, send me a message on Instagram or email me, leave me a comment, whatever it is. I will always be open to listen to any questions or support, or provide support for anyone who's, you know, having a bad time with their mental health. So the next question I have sort of answered, but it is, if you're having a bad day, how can friends and family support you? And again, it comes down to getting to know the person and what their specific needs are. But I would just really encourage you to text them, phone them, check in with them. Don't like keep harassing them, but you know, just send them a line, send them a message, let them know that you're thinking of them and that you're there for them if they want to talk, if there's anything that you can do for them. And again, they might not answer back straight away, but inevitably they probably will answer back, and just knowing that you're there for support is really important to them. The next question is, what is my diagnosis and how do I feel about it? So I don't think I've ever really been sat down by a doctor and been like, you've got like general anxiety and you've got clinical depression. It's something that I've almost like been so self-aware of that I've just like diagnosed myself with it, and then being supported by the doctor and then being like, yeah, that's correct, you've got anxiety, yeah, that was a panic attack, yeah, you've got depression, here's what we can do about it. And as much as possible throughout the years, I've tried to not let it define me, or you know, I am more than my mental condition, and it's wrong to just look at people's surface level and see them and think, well, I'm not going to talk to them because they've got depression, or I'm not going to get to know that person better because they're having panic attacks. That's really crappy reasons not to get to know a person. And it's not a reason to be like put off by asking things, as if like, if you think, well, I don't know what I'm going to say, I might offend them, you know, just say that, you know, say, I've not been through it before, but I want to sort of get to understand it a bit better, you know, can you help educate me? And I would be more than happy to help people out and answer any questions. Sometimes I do feel like it has held me back, certain jobs, and obviously at the moment my depression is not being great. As far as anxiety and panic attacks, I feel that I've come a long way with that, and I'm very self-aware now of like triggers and things that can set it off. And the next question sort of links into this is, how has living with the condition shaped who I am today? And I feel like in general it's made me super like empathetic and be able to sympathize a lot more with other people in their mental health. I feel like not only with my YouTube channel, but just like in person, I've been able to have sort of like this platform to be able to talk about it. And over, you know, the years that I've been talking about anxiety, panic attacks, and now my depression, I've had multiple people email me, DM me, saying, talking about like their stories, or saying that they can relate to what I'm going through, or that they've watched a video and that it's helped them. All these like really positive pieces of feedback, and that is the main reason why I will continue to talk about mental health and be an advocate for it, because it still is a stigma in today's society, and it will continue to be, not just for me but other people suffering, it will continue to be a roller coaster. It's not just a start point, end point. This is probably something that I will have to deal with and manage for the rest of my life in various degrees. And so it's about, you know, accepting that, and that is a part of me, but not being limited by it, and looking at what I can do to help other people and what I can do to sort of learn from it and grow from it. And that is the last of my questions. I think a half an hour video is long enough for this. If you have anything further you want to ask me about, or you want to contribute, leave it down below in the comments. If you've got someone that you think might benefit from seeing this video, then make sure you share it with them. And if you enjoyed the video, make sure you like and subscribe, especially if you want to see more mental health related videos. If not, and you've stuck through it this far, my channel's not all sort of mental health related. There's some cracking Disney vlogs, go check those out. And yeah, I will see you in my next video. Bye guys.